Hey, Justin, how are you?
I'm doing well, Rom. How are you?
Doing all right? Happy Friday. You got a new
Yes,
hat and a new show. I'm keeping track. One
I'm
day we'll talk about that.
I'm diving into the closet and grabbing a new hat every one. We'll see when I run out.
I'm keeping track. So I we want to talk about exercise routines, and I'd love to get your take on even prior to the routines themselves. How do you relate to exercise? How do you approach that from a mindset perspective? Is it, hey, I know this is good for me, therefore I will do it? Is it, I'm going to feel good after I exercise and therefore I do it? Or how do you approach exercise?
Yeah, very good question. I would say first, the pattern I saw from my father informs my approach to exercise. So my father was very fit, and I just always remember being impressed with like how fit he was, and that left a mark. I have experienced different highs and lows with exercise. And what I've found is the most durable pull to consistently exercising is remembering that I feel really good after exercising. And when I go a few days even without exercising, I get down a little bit. I just kind of feel less energized, not depressed per se, but the edges of some type of funk start to set in,
Oh, yeah,
and that is very consistent for me. That if I take off a few days, it really becomes a challenge.
that's right. And, if the funk becomes the baseline, that's also hard. You can't recognize that you're in the funk. Um, uh, so let's talk about routines then. So how do you approach it? Do you have a set schedule? Do you have, yeah, you do it first thing in the morning, or what's the
Yeah.
approach?
So in terms of timing, currently I'm first thing in the morning. I'm up at sometime between 4:30 and 5 to work out. Otherwise, it doesn't get into the day because the day gets away from me.
Right.
Previously in my life, I was a midday workout. So pre-COVID, when I was going into an office downtown years ago, I would work out and skip lunch, and just like consume some kind of food quickly, but work out in the middle of the day, and that worked best for me at the time. Now, I couldn't imagine doing that again, so it's definitely middle of the day. Sometimes, if I have the afternoon lull of energy, sometime between like 2:30 and 4, I might do something for 15 minutes just to get my blood flowing.
So when you
Um,
have the dip in energy, that's a prompt for you to go exercise.
yeah, I try to do, maybe just some pull ups or maybe some push ups, because I know the only thing that's going to get me through that is caffeine, a nap, or exercise. I can't do caffeine that late in the day because
Right.
then my night is shot. I used to be able to just like drink caffeine and then fall asleep, not
Yeah.
anymore.
Right.
And uh, I love a quick power nap, but
Yeah.
sometimes that doesn't get you stronger, as
Right.
they say.
Well,
So,
part of this goes back to, the approach to exercise. I believe a lot of people, I know I did in the past, I had a set of conditions that I would impose upon myself as requirements for exercise. Like, oh, I feel like I've got energy. I feel like I'm well rested.
mm,
Maybe I had I used to do this horrible thing of taking these Starbucks double shot espressos, 40 grams of sugar. I know that's not the right thing to do now. And I don't take any caffeine or exercise, maybe afterward as a bit of a reward. Um, and so I think my view is there's always a good time to exercise, except maybe late at night, not the best time, although I've done that at 9 p.m. And letting go of the mind's need to have the perfect set of conditions to exercise is important because we will self-deceive ourselves. Oh, you've been working hard. You had a long day. You can do it tomorrow. Any reactions around that?
oh, those voices are always there. They're always very convincing and trying to tell you, oh, just do it later. You didn't get enough rest. Oh, you'll feel better tomorrow. Whatever the case may be, that inner monologue is often very convincing. and you just got to shut it out. You can't listen to
Yeah.
it.
So how do
And
you?
that's the discipline of kind of just like getting up and going. And that's why I like it early in the morning, because if I get up that early, I'm not going to go do something else at 4:30 or 5 a.m. I'm
Yeah.
going to take my dogs out. I'm going to let them go to the bathroom, and then I roll straight into the workout. I found that it's hard for me to look at my phone before I start working out. I've in the past had a bad habit of kind of like getting, my phone set for maybe listening to music or something else while I work out. But the first app I look at maybe is Mail or Slack or Instagram or Twitter. And then I'm in a black hole for 15, 20 minutes. And I'm like, wait a second. Now it's like 5:40 in the morning. I got up early to work out, and now I don't even have enough time to finish it before one of my kids gets up. So it's the discipline of saying I'm not going to do anything until I finish my workout.
I think that's the best move. That's the best practice that drives adherence. The blocker in exercise is, I believe, about adherence and discipline. Having those rules that you're conscious about and you're saying to yourself, I know you're a Jocko fan as well. And, we talked about sometime before about when you wake up, you don't hit snooze and you get right after it. And you have that internal spring built in. And every time you do that, you're reinforcing those neural pathways to respond the same way to those circumstances.
Yeah, I had that this morning. So I have 3 dogs. My youngest dog, she's like crazy these days. Don't know what's going on with her. Topic for a separate day, unless I turn her into a running dog and then I start running with her for exercise, which I hate running. But she got up at like 4:30, and my alarm is set typically for 5. Sometimes I'll naturally rise up early, but my alarm is set for 5. But when she got me up at 4:30, I could have said, oh, I'm just going to go back to sleep. And then I could have said at 5, oh, I didn't get a good night's sleep. I just got woken up, and I'll work out tomorrow. But instead, I just sat up. I was like, good. It's 4:30. Let's go. I got an earlier start in the day.
Right.
So
the struggle is real. Let's go. Now, you also said the word good. Well, say some more. Did you actually say that to yourself? Or was it
I did.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
That's a nod to Jocko. That's a nod to the Jocko. Just good. It was not good, but in my mind, I said, I'll figure out how to take advantage of it. And so I said, good. Now I've got 30 extra minutes in my morning that I didn't have otherwise. Because the other side of my inner monologue was cursing my dog and thinking, why are you up at this time? You should be sleeping. Why are you such a crazy dog? I've got an Australian Shepherd that has more energy than my Golden Retriever, or has less energy than my Golden Retriever. Why? But I didn't let myself get there. So credit to Jocko for teaching me that and for applying that.
So he says is when you wake up, say good, or?
Oh, no, he just said anything bad?
Good.
Good.
Oh, I love that.
He'll learn from it. He'll just find the learning from it. So for instance, earlier when I said sometimes I get sucked into Instagram, I used to beat myself up about that, but then I took the approach, good. I learned something. Now I can't use Instagram before. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't fallen into that black hole. Now I know. I can't touch that.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Like 80% of exercise is mindset. I mean, it's true for life too. It's mindset.
Yes.
And finding meaning in suffering is important. And that's fundamentally what you're getting at. And gratitude. And having gratitude creates a positive state of mind, which is also motivating.
Yes. I have a few quotes on my whiteboard that's down in my gym. First of all, I call it the pain cave. It's not really a cave, but I call it that. And I'd say 2 of them are the most important. I say consistency over intensity.
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
I used to have times where I would like really push myself hard, and then I would need a lot of time to recover. And I realized that then led to fits and starts and maybe injuries. And, I wanted to, have an ego lift and put too much weight on the bar because I thought, this would be really cool if I can lift that much weight. And then I got hurt, or then I was too sore to work out. So consistency over intensity. And then the other is a Kobe Bryant quote. Wasn't ever a huge fan actually of Kobe as a player, But later, the more I learned about his approach to life and training, I become a huge Kobe fan.
Yeah.
And I believe he said this when he was recovering from a really serious injury towards the end of his career. Maybe it was a torn Achilles, something very significant later in his career. And he was recovering, and, he didn't want to get up at the time he had to get up to do all of the things he had to do to get back to the court. And he said something along the lines of, I've already made the contract with myself. I signed it. I'm not negotiating with myself. And that's kind of the way I think about that. Mind is trying to negotiate with itself to say, you don't need to do it today. You can do it tomorrow. And so don't negotiate with yourself. You've already made the contract. Fulfill it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that speaks to leading oneself and personal responsibility. That's easier said than done.
That's true.
Now, when you wake up in the morning, it's hard to summon that intellectual idea of not breaking covenants with yourself. Do you actually say, well, Kobe said this one day and therefore I'm going to get out of bed? Or is that
That's why it's written on the whiteboard, so I see it every time I get down to the gym.
So that's right. So you have visual cues which are prompting you. Look, friends of mine, they grew up like fanboys of Michael Jordan. They'd have posters of Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan had his own idols too, which he admired, that motivated him to do 10,000 free throw shots, etc. So I think finding that inspiration around you and creating prompts around you, and sometimes that might be something on the wall, but it also could be a friend that holds you accountable, or a spouse. My cousin is a fitness fanatic. I know when I go visit him, we're always working out. As I'm driving down, I'm like, all right, we're going to do like these 3 exercise routines on these 3 days. My mind is already geared up for it. But when I wake up, all right, yeah, I know he's going to come by at this time. We're going to go work out. So, and you can be deliberate about structuring those cues in your life to focus you on exercise.
Yeah, I would say that the motivating factor of looking up to people or having a community around you, that's actually probably the hardest thing I've been struggling with on a personal level, because I stopped after the pandemic going to like a CrossFit or a gym or anything like that. And I'm fortunate enough to have the ability to build out a gym in my basement. So there's no like, woe is me here. However, you have to motivate yourself every time, and you're alone every time you work out, which it's a challenge. So that's where I've kind of developed these, shortcuts, if you will, or hacks to kind of keep myself motivated. And I have to change up routines every once in a while too, because otherwise it gets too boring.
Right. Well, let's go there in terms of consistency. And I agree. And it's hard when you have a family, right? In my 20s and young 30s, I lived in an apartment building and the gym was on the rooftop and there was no excuse and it was accessible. And making your lifestyle decision around proximity to fitness is very important. The best shape I ever had in my life was when I was required to bike to the train, because it was faster than any other mode of transportation. And we're always trying to squeeze an extra 8 minutes out of life. So I was forced to commit it every day to exercise, because I want to spend more time with my daughter or whatever it might be. And here I am, I got exercise. So those choices matter, and where you live, to set yourself up to go downhill and have momentum in your direction. But on consistency of exercise, and I agree, variation matters. What are your variations of workout? Let's say, you're in a funk and you're like, I just got to be consistent. It may not be the best workout. What's your kind of starter workout to get points on the board?
Yeah. So if it's get points on the board and I'm kind of in a funk, I'll do a cardio workout where I watch a TV show that I want to watch. So I have a rowing machine in the basement. I'll row now I'm rowing for an hour, a couple days a week, and I'm watching a show. Right now I'm watching The Wire. But if I had been in a funk, that would be my way of like getting out of the funk. That's a good one.
Yeah. You have the bait and switch with your stuff. You have the dopamine bait and switch, basically.
Yeah. Exactly. I also like the high intensity interval training if I'm in a funk. Like maybe I just do a quick 20-25 minute workout. So it depends on the time. Like if I knew I had a long time, then I'd probably do that kind of jump on the rowing machine. And if I had a short window of time, then I would do something 20-25 minutes, high intensity interval training, and just feel like, hey, I did it for 20-25 minutes. I got an awesome sweat in. I'm wiped.
Yeah,
And now I'm
I like
back
that.
into a routine.
Would you not watch The Wire except for when you're working it out? Do you link it explicitly to that activity?
I hadn't thought about it, but yes, I do link it specifically to that activity. So
Interesting.
I've been binging shows exclusively through my cardio workouts, my like zone 2 cardio workouts.
Right.
And I've been doing that for a few months. Prior to that, my routine had been much more strength training oriented and days off, as opposed to the days off being lower intensity cardio. So this
Right.
is a newer routine for me.
I like that. I do that as well. I will only enjoy certain content when I'm working out as a quasi reward drip. Now, Huberman, I know you're a big fan of, you listen to countless more hours of Huberman than I have. He talks about this concept of avoiding dopamine stacking.
Yes. I
Well,
have. So to that end, sometimes if I'm weight training, sometimes I use music, sometimes I don't. And the dopamine stacking is sometimes like having the music pump you up, it overloads, I guess.
right,
What I've understood from his statements on this issue. And I get that sometimes, but I also sometimes am like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna jam out right now and put on something that
right.
really gets my blood flowing. And so be it if I've got too much dopamine.
You mix it up. You mix it up a bit, and yeah, I'm definitely conscious about that. In fact, when you can work out and you're in a funk, and the mental conditions are not in place, if you can accomplish that, I feel like it strengthens my overall ability generally in life and my willpower. So I think there's another term for that Huberman calls like the not limbic friction, but there's this term that represents the gap between your intention and then the action. A lot of people have intentions for ideas. Not as many people can translate that to an effect.
Yeah, I think a good friend used to use a phrase. There's a high talk to action ratio.
Yeah,
I love that kind of concept. I
right,
prefer to have a low talk to action ratio. I'd rather do than say.
right, right.
And I'm a talkative person, so that's hard for me to put into place. But I'd rather act than do.
Right.
I try to tell my kids that all the time. They're like thinking about things and talking. I'm like,
Do. Just
just
do.
do it, man.
It's so true. It's so true. Doing will tell you whether you should do it or not as well. If you're
Yeah.
not sure you should do it, maybe, well, actually, I take that back. Certain things you should not do. So
There's a judgment layer
there's a
first.
judgment layer. Yeah, thank you. There's a judgment layer. Yes, absolutely. So tell us about DEXA scans.
Okay, so I'm actually going to do a DEXA scan for the first time ever next week. I was inspired because I met earlier this week with a prospective client, and he does DEXA scans and alerted me to a location nearby that I could do a DEXA scan. And I thought the price point was going to be a lot higher. So I asked, like, out of curiosity, how
Yeah.
much? And he said like $90. So I was like,
What?
oh, I'm definitely doing a
I
DEXA
would
scan.
guess $400, if not
Yeah, I
more.
thought it was going to be something like that. And I was like, I don't really care that much. So I'm happy to talk about it afterwards in terms of what the results are. Obviously, it tells you your percentage of body fat. I'm more interested in visceral fat based on my learnings from studying the Outlive book by Peter Attia that talks about how visceral fat, kind of like the fat around your organs, is more indicative of challenges in the future, and bone density. So like, are my bones dense, and has weight training over the years given me some strength and stability.
This would be
I
your
mean,
first. Yeah. I've never done it. I want to do it myself. That's good inspiration for me to go do that. Also, yeah, it is recommended in Outlive. Is there any radiation consequences that we need to think about?
My understanding, it's very low radiation, maybe like 1/20th of an X-ray. I remember hearing that number, so like don't quote me on that one.
Right.
Do your own research if you're listening. But
Right.
I recall that it is very low radiation. I am most curious about the body fat on a personal level, but that's my own ego issue. It's not really
that is exactly what Peter Attia talks about, right? It's like the visceral fat is an indicator and background condition for inflammation.
I know that is the more important from a health metric. The total body fat is just a vanity number. And so, I mean, vanity plays a little bit into things. When I say my father was in good shape, we grew up in South Florida. So I knew my dad was in good shape because his shirt was off and we were out on a boat all the time.
That's funny. Look, if you want a vanity metric, I'll just send you my numbers. You'll feel better. So I got to, you know, the other part about your father, it's another good source of motivation, is setting an example for kids.
Yeah.
And that's another way to motivate oneself to
I think about that a bunch. I have two boys, 8 and 11, and one is athletic and an athlete. One is relatively athletic and not an athlete, not interested, but both are interested in kind of like health and working out, and they talk about it with me. They don't work out much, and I wouldn't want them to try to work out at that age much, like go play, go run. Right. But every once in a while they come down, they're like, "Oh, Dad, can I do some push-ups with you?" They want to lift weights, but I won't let them really pick up the weights yet at this age. They're too young. But I tell them, "Oh, yeah, go do some push-ups, go hang on the bar, see how long you can hang," and stuff like that. They get kind of frustrated easily because they think they should be able to keep up with me. And I assure them that in 10 years, they're going to be stronger than me, and I'm going to be on the decline and they're going to be on the incline.
And they can't believe that, but yeah,
they can't believe that. And I'm going to hold off as long as I can until they pass me, but it's going to happen.
And that'll be a day of pride and really bittersweetness too.
Yeah. It's the point of no return. I'll never get back ahead of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's my kids also, they're like toddlers and younger than that, but it's really funny when they try to exercise, they try to do like a push-up. One of the things I did is after I had my kids, the hardest part is how do you find the time?
Mm-hmm.
There's no perfect time. You just have to go. And what I would do is squats. Do squats with my newborn. Toddler's a little heavier now. I should still be able to do that. It's a great exercise, and there's no excuse. If you're watching TV, you're listening to this right now, you could be doing squats right now. There's always a way to integrate it. Letting go of the perfect conditions to exercise is important.
That's true. Yeah, you can do things like that, like little micro workouts, just like get a bunch of push-ups in, 20 push-ups here and there throughout the day. They add up. Squats, something like that. Pull-ups, if you're fortunate to have a pull-up bar. I would say there is no perfect time, but the magic of getting up early changed my fitness. And I started doing it when my kids were that age because I realized I wasn't going to ever have the time to do it again. Because as soon as they're up at that age, you're done. You don't have any break until they're asleep. Now, my kids at this age, they can get up and they can be self-sufficient. You know, by self-sufficient, I mean they'll put on a TV or iPad. And when I'm done with my workout, I'll see them. Maybe they come down and say hi and bother me or try to work out with me. Not as frequent, but that time between whenever 4:30 or 5 and like 6:30 when I emerge from the basement is
right. And just make it happen. Like the first 2 days will be painful, but then you'll adjust. You'll go to bed earlier. Now you're on your way to getting a new routine. But
yeah, it was painful. It's dark. You don't want to wake up at that time. But I'm more productive between those hours than if I did the reverse and stayed up till 11, 11:30 or 12. And then I'll just go to bed at 10, 10:30 and wake up early.
Good stuff. Well, why don't we do a brief recap and call it a wrap? So first off on mindset, leading with good, embrace the suck, embrace the suffering. 1, 2, roll out and go. 3, morning is ideal. 4th, be conscious of dopamine stacking. If you're in a rut or in a funk, you can link the effort with consumption of some kind of content that you otherwise wouldn't watch. Right? What else? If you have an accountability mechanism with a friend or a trainer, trainers help massively. Trainers will hold you accountable. The fact that you have to pay the trainer will hold you accountable. They don't have to say anything. Trainers are great, especially when you're trying to build a new habit, new routine. Schedule a trainer 5 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. You're going to regret having scheduled them then, your future self. Just get that one done. That'll help a lot. What else? What else did we discuss on them? That's on mindset. Anything else on mindset?
No, I think that's the right approach. There's no perfect time to exercise. I think that was a good point. You can't wait. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Exactly. Just go.
Just go.
Awesome.
And I would say from a routine perspective, we didn't talk much about it. We could do it in the future, but a balance of cardio and strength and, flexibility / stability is good. I've never been like all cardio, but I've been all strength training. And I feel better now that I have like a mix of both in my life.
Yeah.
I think that's an important component.
Yeah. And having a pair of kettlebells helps too. You can do so much with kettlebells, like kettlebell swings, very simple technique. You don't have to have a gym in your basement. Having some equipment like that can go a long way too. It improves adherence. There's no excuse. Take the excuses out of your life. It's always way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you could do body weight if you have nothing. Kettlebells gets a lot done. I mean, if you can upgrade and you've got a bench and you've got a rack and you've got a barbell with a ton of weights, great, but that's a nice to have, not a necessary.
Right on. Awesome. Should we leave it there?
Let's do it. All right, you going to work out this weekend?
Oh, yeah. I'm a weekend warrior, which is not a good habit. So I will work out Saturday morning. Not a good habit, though. But it's better than not.
It's better than not. That's true. All right. We'll talk again next week. See you around.
Be well. Bye-bye.